If you go down to the portion of the notes that talks about completing the square is something that you learned first in Math 102 in intermediate algebra, and then you also learned completing the square or practiced it in Math 110 college algebra. So this is more of a reminder. The difference in our class is that we're going to be doing this with two variables, not just with x's. I'll be completing the square with both x's and y's. So taking a look here at the how-to steps, first thing you want to do is get a out of there. When I talk about a, you remember the old quadratic equation that was ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So when I refer to a's, b's, and c's, this is what I'm talking about. So you want to get a out of there if you have any. Secondly, get the constant over to the other side. You're going to ignore that temporarily. Thirdly, take half of your b, and then you want to square that number. After you've squared it, you want to add it and subtract it. After you've done that, you want to factor your trinomial, and then the very last thing you want to do is you have to redistribute a back to your binomial and to the constant. And then the last thing is move those extra constants to the other side. So number 46, we're going to be following this step-by-step how-to, and the first thing it says is it a circle or not? We got to decide this. And what I don't like about it is that this equation is not written in my standard equation. If it were written as a standard equation, then I'd be able to easily see whether or not I have an H, a K, and an R. So the first thing I'm going to do is you'll notice that my X's do not have an A value in front of them. My Y values do not have an A in front of them. So I don't need to worry at all about that first step of getting A out of there. The second step is to move the constant to the other side. So I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to make some space so that I have room for completing the square. So all I did was copy my X terms and my Y terms. I moved my 16 to the other side by subtraction. And now I'm ready to start with my completing the square. So you remember my tip list says to take half of my B. So if we're looking here at my B, which is a positive 8, take half of that, that's going to be 4. The next step says to square that number, so 4 squared is 16. And then the step after that says that I should add it and subtract it. And that's what the blank is for adding it and subtracting it. Now I've done both the X's and the Y's here. So you'll notice that even with the Y's, my B was 6. I took half, which is 3, and I squared that, which is 9. I added and subtracted the 9. So the next thing is that in our list of how-tos, we're going to factor the trinomial. And I haven't done any math here. All I did was highlight what the trinomial is, tri meaning 3. And so I'm factoring the trinomial. I'm just factoring the highlighted portions. And so as I factor this, you'll notice a couple of things. First of all, you want to keep the same variable that you were using. You also want to keep the sign that you used on that B term. And then the last thing is that this number is always going to be whatever half of the B term was. So that's a shortcut method to factoring. The minus 16, that was simply brought down. I didn't do any math with that, so please make sure that you understand my factored version only came from the trinomial. The minus 16 and the minus 9 were just brought down. So then the last thing that we need to do here, and you can start to see my standard equation is emerging. Let's move those constants to the other side. So I have two constants that I want to move to the other side. And when I move them to the other side, I'm going to get a positive 9. And that is my standard equation. So the direction said to decide whether or not it's a circle. And I can tell that, yes, this is a circle. And the reason is I have a center and I have a radius. My center is going to occur at -4, +3, because that's my h and my k. Remember that from my standard equation, my h and my k. And then my radius is going to be 3 because remember this number here is r squared.